Hey guys, Craig here again. Okay, so we've finally got another update on the trailer. Where we left you before was at stage 9, I think it was. And I was just about to start doing the suspension units. So talking through this, I've already briefly been over it. It's got working suspension. It's got the springs and everything in there. And this part is actually fairly quite simple, to be honest, putting the suspension units together. You make 10 of those, I think it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you make 10 of these units, and it starts to get interesting when you start going through all this pipe work. Okay, these little bits are a little bit of a ball ache to get on, and that will become apparent shortly as to why. But the actual making of the bogies is quite simple. Okay, so moving over to the page, all of this, I think there's another page over the way, which is just purely dedicated to all this piping. So you've got two different colours here. It's basically the same type of ducting, which is that stuff when you get it in your box, and you're basically cutting it to these dimensions. Okay, just make sure that you use the right length at the right place, okay, because that'll be apparent when it comes onto the trailer. So all of this is all dedicated to that piping. It gives you a rough guide here how to place your bogies, bearing in mind you've got the two little tanks at the front there. So this is the back of the trailer. So make sure all the ABS pots are sticking to the back. Then it goes on and it shows you how to put more piping on, because each one of these bogies actually has 4 sets of pipes. Okay. And to be honest, it is a complete friggin' nightmare doing this pipe work. So I started off with that, and I just couldn't get my head around it. I just could not get this to do what I wanted it to do. So I come up with a brainwave. I decided I would use that, which is exactly the same sort of like diameter as the as this black tubing stuff. Bearing in mind this is just wire. You've got to take out the actual wire at the end to make it a tube. So I got this solid gold stuff. It's the same diameter as that, and I found it much easier to work with this than it was to work with that. Purely because you can bend it and it will stay in the shape. Whereas the rubber piping and that, it makes a representation. It isn't very good. Okay, so moving on from that. Next page then. This is just fitting of the wheels and all the hubs and everything. Sticking them onto the bogies. Adding the tyres. Adding the hubs at the end of the bogies there. It shows you how to affix the pipe work here. Now on my build, what I've actually done, or not done, I haven't bothered with any of this. A, you can't see it once it's on its wheels, so unless you're going to have your trailer upside down, you're not going to see this detail anyway. And number 2, once the wheels are in the way, you're not really going to see it anyhow. And number 3, don't forget it's got working steering. So once this is on, and you've got your pipes laid in place and you've got it all glued, if you want to turn your wheels, it can't turn because the pipes are glued down. Okay, so what I've actually done on mine, I've chopped here. Basically, it's got all the pipework detail on the bogies, but I've chopped it here so the wheels can still turn. Missing out all this detail because it's going to be weathered up anyway and it's going to have mud. So that was my idea. What I was thinking of was putting the brass piping along down to here, up to this point, and then still having it chopped so you can still see that part and it'll still turn, but it makes no odds, end of the day. However, I'll show you the issue in a minute with this pipe work once we get to it. Here then, you fit in the tie rod ends. Basically, you clip these onto here, that clips onto there. You've got to glue it because it won't stay. It won't stay in place if you don't. Same with these tie rod ends here. You glue it into the hole on the top of the plate inside the spine. You glue it onto the end, exactly the same piece where that's glued to. You glue this into here, and then you just work your way down the trailer. And that comes to the second problem. Because these parts are glued, you've then lost your steering. So all that effort you've gone to getting working suspension, working steering, then you glue these in place and then your steering don't work. What they could have done is maybe use these as proper clips and then just clip it through and not glue it. Okay, so just bear that in mind, that if you want your wheels turned, you've got to turn them, and then once you're happy where they are, then you add the tie rods and glue them in. But once these are set, you ain't turning your wheels back. Okay, I've just left mine totally straight, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, and that'll become apparent as to why shortly. However, just make sure that you actually decide again beforehand how you want your wheels. Okay, because once those bits are on and they're glued, you ain't moving your wheels for nothing. Once you've got past that, it's fitting the swan neck to the trailer. Real doddle, just make sure you put loads of glue in there, clamp it on, job's a fish. Nothing at all emotional with that part of the build. Oh, and funny enough, we're back to more tubing. So here it starts off with the two rubber tubes coming around. Again, make sure you cut it to this this length. I've just basically added a millimetre on. So where it says 51.5, I went for 52.5 and then just trimmed it down as and where I needed it. But that's the same duct as before. Basically it comes off the two rams onto these points here. Then the next stage, these two pieces, 37 and 41, these are plastic, and once you get these in place, it clamps the rubber to the actual spine itself. And then once you get underneath that, you've got 44, 26, and that just clamps on again over the top of the other pipes. Then you've got a couple of extra pipes that go from the tanks here on both sides, and basically come around and attach to the end of the pistons. Okay. What I found a lot easier, if I didn't throw me X-Acto around, what I found with attaching these, there's little like pins at the end what the tube's supposed to go onto. I'm finding it's very difficult to get that that stuff to glue properly to the actual piece. I've lost the end of the knife now. You see, this is because I'm rushing trying to get this done for you, because I haven't done an update in a while. Oh, let's get that on there. Yeah, what I was saying is, what I've done is I've cut the little pins off so it's a flat surface, and then I've just super glued the tube to the tops of the nipples, if you want to call them nipples. And I found it a lot easier to get the pipes attached that way than trying to force them onto those little tiny pins or those little tiny nipples, because it doesn't work that well. And you'll probably find that you'll look at this pipe and it will just pop off. Okay, same with this bit here. It's got like a little nipple on the end. I'll show you it on the actual trailer itself. Zoom in. You can kind of just see the little nipple on the end. I've cut that off and then just glued the pipe to this big chunky bit. It works a lot better. Okay. Basically you're doing exactly the same on the other side. Once you put the pipes on, with the exception, where is it? The pipe works slightly different on this side. The plastic bits, that is slightly different on this side than it was the other. Okay, but you're basically doing the same thing as what you did on the other side. Once you've got that on, very easy. 2 tool bins either side of there, and that's pretty much that step complete. Then you're onto the landing legs and some photo etch for the lights. Something to note here is, if you look how this landing leg is, you've got the actual handle coming out towards this way, and once you've made both legs, the handles sit exactly the same. And it is correct, the leg that goes on this side, the handle sits inward towards the swan neck. I thought I'd done it wrong, because usually it makes sense having a handle on the outside so you can get to it. But no, it is correct. The handle sits on the inside towards the swan neck on this right hand side leg here. Okay, and I'll show you that in a minute. Photo etch, no dramas with this. It's basically just flat pieces on here. SA 4 and 5 fit into the slots. These just glue onto the ends. Making these pieces are pretty simple. It's basically a flat sheet of etch, fold it into that shape, and then stick your lights on. Job's a fish. On the landing leg, you've got this little pin. You've got holes in the leg, so you can adjust the leg, put the pin in, and it holds just like the real thing. That's the only thing that's missing off the rear legs, because at this point mine is still out, because there's nothing to secure them in, unless I glue them. Moving on is basically the other side, the other set of landing legs. Then we're attaching the photo etch mudguards. You've got a couple of like bracing bars at the bottom with some photo etch. You got some ramp claws, or whatever you want to call them, at there, and a little light box made out of photo etch goes in the middle. This is all made up from these pieces here. This side is the opposite of what you did on the other side. As you can see, what I was saying about that landing leg, you can see the handle does actually go on the inside. Okay, I'm still trying to figure out how you crank the handle when it would probably clatter off the actual load bed of the trailer itself. Not sure why they've done that. I'd have probably thought in real life they'd have had that on this side, but it's not. So it obviously works because they've been using them for years. Anyway, moving on, step 18 is doing the ramps. Nothing emotional about any of this. When you get to these points here, you've got a couple of tacks that you put in. What I've noticed is the tacks can be, if you've got the right ones, so long as you keep this bar straight, you shouldn't have an issue. But if it's slightly kinked or bent, when it compresses, if you pull it down, the pins have to slide through here, this gap. And if it's slightly skew-iff or slightly bent or whatever, it's going to jam against the plastic. I've super glued mine in because there's nothing to hold them in otherwise. Same at the bottom. I've super glued the tack in and the ramps still work fine. Nothing, that's the other side. Nothing emotional reference the ramps themselves. Got some more photo etch going on here. The reason I've got blue circles is because it's the parts I haven't done. I'm just reminding myself that I haven't stuck on the clear parts and the little orange flashy beacons. So I'm going to paint it up first, then I'll super glue them in place. Fitting the ramps and this piece here slots into there, and what you'll notice once it's built, it doesn't actually sit square. I'll show you in a minute. The actual ramps kind of sit squint on both ways, kind of do that sort of thing. But I'll show you in a minute when I get onto the actual trailer itself. I told you it was a big update, this one. I've still got the chains to add in the back here and a couple of bow shackles. This is basically the other side to what you've already completed. Then you're onto the plates for the center of the trailer. All of these are the brass plates. What I found easiest is putting these ends with the clamps on, put it in first at this side, slide it across, and then prod it up and then clip them over. okay, because it's a funny shape. I'll zoom in. As you can see here and there, they kind of get stuck. So if you put this side in the hole here and then slide it across and then clip them in, it's no issue at all. I've just done that. I haven't glued mine down, so I can still lift the brass up if I want them out. And exactly the same drills all the way down. On the end bits here, it doesn't show you in the instructions, but when you're dealing with SA9 and SA10, it gives you this little tab here. Oh no, that's the wrong piece. This piece here, there is actually a little tab that folds down, because if you don't, if you remember right back at the start, you've got a silver metal bar that goes across here. If you don't bend the tabs down on these edges, or sorry, this edge and this edge, they don't fit. Okay, so just make sure you put the tabs in and it'll drop straight in. Here is like a large, I wouldn't say bow shackle, like a large snatch block to pull extra weight or whatever, a 2-to-1 pull or whatever. That's fairly straightforward. Several pieces. On here, you got some photo etch that you bend to 90 degrees, you glue it onto the pin, and what you'll notice is this glues into here, and there's two pieces here, these little supports that aren't numbered. They don't tell you to put them on, and it's quite easy to miss because there's nothing in the instructions to say anything about that at all. Reference these two little clamps. I think it was an R or something, an R part. But yeah, don't forget to put these pieces on because they won't go in otherwise. There's another little piece here. It's like a locking bar that looks as though it goes through the shackle, locks into place to stop the thing moving. Don't forget to put that on because I nearly missed it. You got a load of these little bow shackles to stick in. Something to bear in mind with that, if you're going to have something on the back here, you've really got to think about where you're going to have it on the trailer, where your tie down points are, because this tells you to glue them flat. However, if you're going to tie it down, you need them up, don't you, to put the ratchet straps around or whatever, or your chains around to strap it to the trailer. So again, you need a little bit of thought as to the shackles. That's fairly bog standard though. Then you're onto these pieces, P29, P9, you make 20 of those, make 2 of those, make 2 of those, and 4 of those. And again, you've got various locations all the way down the trailer. This is a bulk standard place where it tells you to put them. But again, you're going to have to think about what vehicle you're going to put on the trailer and where these pieces are going to locate. Okay, because if you've got a tank, for example, a small tank or a truck, you're going to be sat on top of these. Okay, so you'd have to move them out to the outer positions and there'd be tie down points. Okay, same with these. These are extra tie down points that you can move along for other types of vehicle. But again, really think about where you need to place these pieces. Don't just go off the instructions. Get your other model on the back of the trailer and then figure it out. Failing that, if say you've got an Abrams, for example, stick your Abrams on the back, go Google it, Abrams on hett or something, and then see how it's actually tied down in the video or on pictures on Google, and try and mimic that on the top of your trailer. Okay, otherwise it could go drastically wrong very quickly. And that's where I'm at the minute. The only things I've really got left are the wheel chocks, photo etch wheel chocks to go on, and that's pretty much me done and ready for painting them. So to look at mine, let's get the instructions out of the way. I've lost a leg. Oh, there's the leg. Alright, so there's my trailer anyway, unpainted. Right, something I forgot to mention. The swan neck moves. It can move up and down with the pistons, okay? So when you come into these brass steps, if you follow the instructions, they all sit flush behind this these braces here, okay? But if you read the instructions, it kind of tells you to glue all of this together. However, just for ease, and I know it's come off of here because mine's going to be permanently down, but that gives you some idea, okay? It needs to be loose so your swan neck can still move, okay? But if you follow the instructions, it's going to have you stuck in one position, okay, which will be up. So just bear that in mind. You're going to have to bend the steps as per the instructions, but don't glue it at this point because it needs that articulation, okay? And they just pretty much snap back into place. Oh, yeah, I'll do that later because I'm one-handed. But they just pretty much snap back up. The piston does move. I just balls that up. I'm just trying to do everything one-handed, so it's a little bit harder. Oh, get off. I've left the spare wheels off here. Basically, that's the spare wheels. I need to paint them up first and then put the rubber tyres on. And then once that's done and that's painted and the rest of it's painted, I'll stick that in its place there because it is like really tight. Something else to note, this little winch thing for the tyre does actually work if you do it correctly. But just make sure that you've got that it's taut and that it's not loose. Nothing else to tell you about that side really. Brass plates like I was showing you before. So you still got the bow shackles that can move. All these little holes, you can place these in various places for different types of vehicle. Down here, this is what I was saying to you before. Where's my X-Acto gone? There's the metal bar going all the way across. And if you don't bend these right, as you can see, I tried to force that one down and had a brain fart and it's now bent a little bit. But if you don't bend the flap over, it don't sit flush. Okay. I had a bit of an issue there with that one as well. That just needs a little bit of glue on there to hold that down. But as you can see, the angle, the photo etch is pretty much square. So again, slide it in from this side, slide it across under the lip, and then just pick it out with a set of tweezers or whatever, and then it will drop into place. No problem. There's those pieces at the back I was telling you not to forget, and the little clamp that holds this in place. Okay, that's pretty much where I'm at the minute. The ramps, by the way, on the springs, they do work. So this is what I was saying to you by watching out for the pins, because I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you'll see that actually. If you can see where the pin's going, you can see how much is sticking out. If you bend this bar, you're going to have an issue because that bar actually has to slide up and down this gap. Okay, so just be aware of that, and be careful that you get the right tack in there, because if you get the wrong one, because there's two long ones that are left in the box, it doesn't actually fit that slider, so your ramps won't actually move. Okay, so just be cautious of that. The suspension, what I was telling you about, you've got working suspension, you've got 8-wheel steer, and none of it works once it's all glued in. So if you look on mine here, this is what I was saying. I've used that brass pipe. You basically get two lines that come from in there. You get 2 lines off the ABS pots. You feed it all up. It's supposed to come off of here, roots down to there, and across to the airlines. And you basically do that for all of them. But like I said, I've chopped mine, thinking that I'll still be able to turn my wheels, because you're not really going to see that detail anyway. To find out that all that effort of 8 of the steering, it doesn't work. Okay, so it's entirely up to yourself. I found it a lot easier with that brass tubing. Pretty much done it on all of the wheels. I've used the rubber pipe, like I said, for here as per the instructions. There's all the plastic pipes underneath that you got to attach. And that's pretty much where we're at with it now. The other side is exactly the same. Not much else to tell you. But if you're going to be worrying about those pipes, or you got a proper rivet counter out there, oh, it's not right because you ain't got the pipes on. Bear in mind, once you've got the wheels on, are you actually going to see it? Looking at that, are you actually going to see the pipes for the detail and for the size the pipe is? No. So all that extra effort, I really wouldn't worry about it. But anyway, that's an overall look of it. We're nearly done. So the next update then, it'll be totally finished assembly wise. We'll finish off the last few steps. I'll show you that. We'll get it painted, and then we'll get it put on the truck and start on the dyno that I'm going to do for it. So that's basically me on this update. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Or any questions, comments, anything like that, or anything you want to say about the actual trailer, fire my way in the comments, and I'll speak to you again shortly. What are we now? It's Thursday. No, not. It's Wednesday. So the next update will maybe be Sunday night, Monday night time. Anyway, I'll let you get on. And thanks for your time again, guys. No, mate.